Hi guys, and welcome back to Cheap and Green. Let me show you the ceramic floor on my main floor level of my house. Obviously this is not a gorgeous floor, and ultimately I really like to rip the whole thing up and throw it away and get something new. But this is probably about half of my ground floor level, so the estimates that I've gotten have been between $3,000 and $5,000 to get this replaced. It's a huge amount of money, and it would also take my ground floor and my kitchen basically out of commission for 2 to 3 days. So what I'm going to do instead is patch it. This floor was probably installed sometime in the 1970s, not really all that attractive. But what makes an unattractive floor even uglier is when it's all broken into bits. This floor is actually pretty darn ruined. When we bought this house, we didn't realize there was a structural problem, and the beam in the basement had actually been removed. So there's way too much bounce in the floor, and these tiles have just shattered. Now, aesthetically, it's hideous, but the other problem is that it's a really big trip hazard. You catch your edge of your toes and your shoes in here, and these little bits of tile make awesome cat toys. And the cats have systematically been pulling out all the little bits and scattering them around the house. So normally what you would try and do is go and find other tiles that match the ones that you already have. But these tiles, I'm sure, are long gone, and ultimately they're so ugly anyway, I don't really care about trying to match them. So let me show you what I did instead. I went to the Restore, which is, if you haven't been, you have to go. It's an amazing place. They have all sorts of leftover building material, and sometimes they have other things too, like appliances and furniture. So I found this collection of tiles. Now, what I didn't really want to get into is actually cutting tiles. And this size of tile is not readily available anymore. So by getting smaller tiles, I can just fit them into the spot. Sorry, that was loud. Like this. I don't have to cut them. This mosaic tile, because one was missing, I think I got this whole sheet for 50 cents, and I'm sure this would have been something like $15 or $20 normally. So it comes on a mesh back, and I can just measure out how much I want and cut the mesh, and it'll just drop right into place. So the first thing that I need to do is actually remove all the damaged tile and the broken pieces. And I want to show you, there's this white, well, it used to be white at one point, adhesive. Glue will not stick to glue, so I have to try and scrape as much of that off as possible. So let me show you the tools you'll need for this part. So I'm going to need, obviously, safety glasses. Thanks, that's very helpful, Lucky. I've got knee protection. This is just one of those foam pads that we had in the basement. I've got a crowbar and a rubber mallet, X-Acto knife just to cut the mesh off of the tiles, and a variety of kind of scrapey tools. I'm not quite sure how hard this is going to be, but I've got a collection here, and I'll just use what I need. So one thing that's important to remember, when I'm taking out the broken tile, I want to make sure that I'm not going to put any leverage on an unbroken tile. I mean, this one's actually in decent shape, but if I start using this as leverage to pry this off, I will crack and damage this area. So I want to really make sure that I don't do that. An old piece of grout that's fallen out. It's basically garbage, but I need to match the color of this grout so that when I put the new tiles in and I grout them, that it's not a startlingly different color and it kind of blends a little bit. So I'm going to save this piece and take it with me to the hardware store so they can try and match the color as much as possible. Now I have to try and scrape off as much of this adhesive as I possibly can. So as you can see, I did not manage to actually get all the glue off. It proved much more difficult than I was expecting. I tried my little hand sander. That worked a little bit better, and I was at least able to get it relatively smooth, so I should be able to get the new adhesive on relatively evenly. I'm not sure how well this is going to work, but you know what? It can't be worse than it was before, so we'll give it a try. For this next part, the materials that we're going to need are a notch trowel and some tile adhesive. That's my key to open the can here. And a bucket and some rags with just a bit of warm water to make sure we keep the adhesive off the top of the tiles. So you can see that I dry fit these before I put the adhesive down, just to sort of get a sense of how it was going to look and how I might want to arrange it. And then I use the notch trowel, I put the adhesive down, and when I put the tiles in, I kind of can wiggle them into place a little bit, and I want to make sure that I do that so they're really, really stuck, but I can make sure that I'm happy with how they align with the other tiles that are in there. Now you can use spacers, and actually I would recommend that. You can buy them in a box, because none of these tiles match and they don't match the existing tile. The spacers weren't really going to work for me because they're consistent, and this is not consistent. So I just eyeballed it. And now what I have to do is I have to wait for it to dry overnight before I can grout it. So the first thing I'm going to need is less cats.